The use of generative AI for cheating. Let's say we're a high school student or a college student or even in elementary school and we need to write a paper. It's super clear that we could potentially cheat, use ChatGPT or a similar product and basically just not do the work, which is a real problem because there's a point to us having to put in the effort of writing our own papers and that's where learning comes from, right? So we worried that there's no countermeasure to this, but let's talk about this. So we're going to go out to ChatGPT and let's say we're a high school student and we need to write a paper. Let's say it's a history paper. And this one happens to be US history paper. And I've come up with a prompt that is going to be what I, as the high school student, would put in so that I don't have to do my work and I can play video games. That, when I was growing up, that would probably be what the challenge that I would have. I'd always be looking for maximization of the time that I could be spending playing computer games and homework. If I can minimize the time on homework, then I get more time. So here's the paper that ChatGPT wrote for us. Cool. Good or bad, whatever, doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this to some very reputable tools that are going to be used to analyze whether this looks like it was created with generative AI. And so the first tool that we're going to go to is something called Giant Language Model Test Room. And this is a product that is free to use. And you can see the contributors to this project. So it's very significant. And what it's going to do, and this is going to help us understand a little bit about generative AI, in addition to understand, hey, there are tools that people are working on and continuing to evolve to detect basically cheating. Okay. And so here, this whole system is there to analyze whether it looks like generative AI was used. And the way that it does that is it goes back to our discussion of the GPT model. The GPT model is a next word predictor. And it is going to predict the next word and then the next word and the next word. And so if we find that the sequence of words one after the other is very predictable, then it looks like it was generated via GenAI and not human authored. If we find unpredictable words following other words, it's like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. That actually is a clue. The unpredictability, it's a clue that it was written via a human being. And so let's go in here and I'll show you how this tool works. Okay. So here's an example of written work. Okay. And which written work do I have open right now? Okay. So we have this as the written work, and then there's a coloring system that is used in this system to indicate the likelihood or the predictability of the next word. And so if it's green, it's pretty standard. And if it's yellow, it's a little bit less normal for that word to follow. And then if it happens to be this pinkish color, it's very unusual. Okay, and GAN, what is that? Okay, so that's very, very specific here. VAEs. Okay, so this looks pretty unpredictable because there's quite a bit of red in here with some sprinkle of the purple. Okay, so let's take our article, and this is just a copy and paste of the article that we have. Okay. And I've clicked on this button here, and it's using an old model, a very low-end model, to identify whether it looks predictable or not. And holy smokes, that's so much different, isn't it? It's all green. It's all super predictable. So if you were, let's say you're a parent, let's say you're not an educator, you could see the applicability of this as an educator and you're a teacher, a teacher's assistant. This would be pretty powerful. And the school system might have an established tool that is used for this particular purpose, so that would work. But let's say you're like a parent and you're worried that your child is tech savvy. You're like, are they doing the work? Well, it's going to be hard to validate that with even a trained eye. Okay, but you could come to this tool, free to use, and this screams written via generative AI. So that is really, really cool. I'm going to take that same text that we got. I'm going to save that. New deal. DR. New. Okay. So I'm going to put this in a different tool that expects it to be an uploaded like Word document. Okay. So I'm going to go to this PC, put it in my documents folder. I think that'll be easier to upload. Okay, so I'm going to go to this other tool, okay, Sapling.ai, which has some other products, but it does have the ability to check on generative AI. So we're going to choose that file. Hopefully I can find that file easily. Great. Okay, so here we go. I've uploaded that document. And it's 100% fake. Okay, so can we detect the usage of generative AI? We absolutely can with these sorts of tools. And there are other tools, but I gave you two different tools that are clearly able to identify sections, or in this case, it's the entirety of the work product that was created via generative AI. Still be on the lookout for inserted sort of almost like randomized words, unusual words that might throw these off. And you might find one paragraph was written with generative AI and another paragraph was written via a human being. So that sort of strategy also is something to bear in mind. But in a world that has become more complicated with these powerful tools, it is important to understand that we can combat against them. And these tools are out there, free to use. And it is good if you have a use case for this to educate yourself so that you, like if you were a high school teacher, you would want to, when you suspect that something looks like it was written via generative AI, drop to one of these tools and you can see they are capable of being very effective. There's always a possibility of a false negative or a false positive. A false negative, it was written with generative AI, but it wasn't detected. And a false positive, somebody just happens to write in a very predictable manner. That's possible. However, when you look top to bottom at something like this, you can probably come up with a fair level of confidence that it was written via generative AI.